Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson. Here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard, man, it's busy, man. It is busy. It's getting chilly, too. Got in the hot tub last night. Was kind of glad to have that cool air in my face. But I tell you what, things are changing around here. Weather's changing. You know, we had our 15 minutes of fall. Now it looks like we're headed to winter. But, a lot of rumors out there about the Mississippi State coaching search. We'll talk about some of that today. Let me encourage you, if you're not already a member of genespage.com, we understand that when the Mississippi State family is in crisis, we kind of come together. We circle the wagons a little bit, and we're doing that over at genespage.com. And because we want to be able to give you information at a discounted price, we're going to run a 60% off the annual subscription price special. Yeah, and it's been busy. Yeah, it's been really busy. Got some people back, too. It's interesting, Had some people leave recently and said, I think I'm done. Well, they're back, And so we welcome them back, open arms, no hard feelings. We're just here to support the Bulldogs and report on the Bulldogs. And we do that over at genespage.com. And I can tell you, your good friend and host been a little testy last couple of days. Just tell you. These coaching searches, and I'll be honest with you, just to kind of give you some personal background here. One of the things I told my wife, when we lost to Auburn, because at that point I felt like, it's going to be tough to come back from this. I mean, it's a very pedestrian Auburn offense, and they did a good job against Arkansas. Maybe they figured some things out. But when we dropped that game and the way we did, I said, man, I'm not looking forward to covering a coaching search. It's so labor intensive, and I know that you guys, you deserve the best. And listen, I had somebody tell me recently, about, this is the time that I'd usually shine. And I don't know if that's the case, but I'll tell you this, that we're pretty obsessive about all this stuff. And I always take it as a challenge, when people say, there's, you're not going to be able to get information. And fortunately, I've been covering Mississippi State since 1997. And so I've seen coaches come and go. I've seen assistant coaches come and go. I've seen administrators come and go. I've seen athletic directors come and go, but I'm still here. And you kind of find out who you can talk to and who you can trust. And, of course, got some extensive contacts around the country. And then, of course, with some friends in agent circles. And so, this time of year when this kind of stuff happens, I hit them up and I wear them out. And so they're always happy to hear from me in the beginning. They're like, I knew I'd be hearing from you, man. What can we do? By the time this thing is over, they're so sick and tired of hearing from me, because here's the deal, man. My allegiance and loyalty is to all of you. And if I'm in a position that I can get you information, I'm going to make the call. And it's important to me. I think you deserve to know what's going on. Now, we don't want to do anything to jeopardize Zach Selman's search, right? We don't. And so we're in contact with people on campus. There are a lot of times we'll hear things because there's agents out there that love to float their clients' names in association with jobs to try to get them a raise at their current position. And that happened a lot when we hired Chris Simonis. We had a lot of people out there that weren't even serious candidates that were coming out later and saying, I've decided to sign an extension and a raise with this particular school, and I no longer have interest in the Mississippi State job. And what was so funny about that is we didn't have any interest in them. And so there will be some of that in this football search. So I encourage you, don't believe everything you read on Twitter. Because all of a sudden what happens is people thinking, everybody keeps turning us down. Well, all those people we don't even offer. That's how the game is played. So understand, and Zach Selman said it on Monday, and if you don't hear it from him, it's probably not true. Well, I'm going to offer you too. I'm going to have some things to say too, and we're going to do our best. We may not be able to announce a hire. We hope to. I was promised when we hired Leach, because we sat on it. We knew that it was Leach. And if you were a member of genespage.com, you understand we were the only people talking Mike Leach. And ultimately it was Mike Leach. And little did I know that would begin a friendship with Mike Leach that I never thought possible. So we're going to get to it as best we can. And I go back to the Justin Parker thing too. And that's the thing that's important too. Like, what's true today, it may not be true tomorrow. Right? There may be candidates out there that don't have a lot of interest today, but all of a sudden, as they get into the silly season and they realize maybe the offers that are coming their way are maybe not better than Mississippi State, Or maybe they become somewhat disenfranchised with some things at their current location. And I said, you know what, I'm going to double back that. That happened. We hired Lamonis. There were a couple of candidates that John Cohen approached initially. You're like, John, I don't know if this is the right year for me to make the move. And then, as we got done with it, as we're closing in on terms with Chris Lamonis, a couple of those coaches came back and said, okay, I'll take it. Well, there's no longer an offer on the table. We hired Chris Lamonis, who won us a national championship. I don't know what your feelings about Chris are today, but the fact that we were number one in college baseball at the end of the year for the first time in school history is a pretty special moment. But yeah, again, things are going to change. And sticking with baseball for a second, I remember the Justin Parker thing, right? We had Justin Parker on our initial hot board, and that's always great. Like when you identify the guy that ultimately gets the job first. That happened with me and Robbie Falk on the women's basketball search. We had Nikki McRae-Penson on the list first. And I had a friend, a matter of fact, a listener to this show that works in college academia that hit me up and said, hey, I don't know if this lady is going to get the job, but I know that Nikki McRae-Penson is a candidate for the job at Mississippi State. So we run with it. And it works out. Now, we're not 100% with that. Nobody bats 1,000. But like the Justin Parker situation, I can tell you, maybe a week before we actually made him the priority, that deal was dead, man. It was. Everybody told me he's happy at South Carolina, not looking to move on, not going to make a move this year, a little bit hesitant, because of the whole thing. Lamonis would be on the hot seat. He didn't want to have to move his family again in 2 years. And then what do you know? All of a sudden, Chris Lamonis basically makes up his mind is we're going to go get the best guy, and it's Justin Parker. And so the weekend before Justin Parker visited our campus, I was told by somebody in an agent circle that said, hey, you know what? This thing with Justin Parker may not be over just yet. A week or two ago, he was like, no, I'm not going to make a move. There was all this talk about his head coach taking the job down at Miami, didn't want to go down there. Ultimately, everybody kept their jobs, and I remember some South Carolina media people, and I don't mean this disrespectfully. So please don't take it that way. I had some people that were saying, hey, what, man, Steve's wrong about this. And you know what? I may have been. But it turns out that I wasn't. And that's just kind of how things happen. Things change quickly. So, again, we're putting things out there that we've heard. That doesn't mean it's not going to change later. So understand that. There'll be some new names emerge. Matter of fact, we're on our 5th edition of the hot board. And what I mean by that is we've taken some people off, we put some people on, we've updated some people. And so that's a VIP, feature at genespage.com. Mike Nemeth, you remember, Mike? Mike ran media relations at Mississippi State for generations, right? I was sharing with some new guys on my staff today. Times like these, I really lean on Mike and David. I really do. David's been covering Mississippi State since 1979. And Mike, of course, is head of media relations. They have relationships that I don't. Now, we have a lot of mutual friends, but there are people sometimes that may be more comfortable talking to them. Mike's a guy that knows everybody in the Southeastern Conference. Mike Nemeth can pick up the phone and call any campus in this conference, and they'll take his call. He can call over to Birmingham. They'll take his call. And so it's so great to have those people that I consider giants in my circle. It's true. Now, I'm out here grinding, trust me. And I probably irritate some people here a lot when these things are going on. But when you've got that wealth of information and those resources available to you, it makes you better. Again, I shared with my guys this morning, I said, I trust Mike and David without reservation, and I don't trust anybody. It's true. I don't take anything anybody tells me at face value, as many in my life can attest. I'm the Ronald Reagan type, trust but verify, right? But anyway, come check us out at Gene's Page. Again, 60% off. The annual subscription price, I don't know how long we run it, so act today. And we're going to be doing daily updates on what we've learned about the coaching search and trying to familiarize you with some of the candidates. Mike Nemeth and I had a chuckle a while back when there are a lot of people telling me, hey, this whole thing with the athletic director search is going to be locked down. Yeah, we profiled Zach Selman as a candidate 3 weeks before he took the job. A name that kind of came out of nowhere. And then ultimately, before we make a decision, we told our subscribers, When many people thought it was going to be Jared Banco, we said, no, it's going to be Zach Selman. And it was. And that's not tooting my own horn. I'm just kind of telling you that's the wealth of resources that we have. And we work really hard to leverage those relationships to get you guys the truth. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company. Nothing truer than the fact that you can go to Bulldog Burger Company and have a wonderful meal at a wonderful price in a wonderful atmosphere with all the wonderful people around you, whether it be your friends, your family, your coworkers. I don't know what you're looking to do or who you're looking to entertain, but Bulldog Burger Company has a place for you. Go in there, have the spring rolls as your appetizer. Maybe if you don't want the spring rolls, maybe get those new nachos. Maybe get the wings. One of the things I love about the wings, and I had them again recently, sometimes you go get a chicken wing and it's overcooked, and they just kind of, wash it around in the sauce and hope you don't notice. The wings at Bulldog Burger Company are fried to perfection and then sauced, and you get them, and it doesn't feel like some charred chicken wing just kind of bathed in buffalo sauce. It's amazing. So maybe if you're looking, kind of change it up a little bit. Try those wings. Sometimes I get them as an entree. True. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive here in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowood area. Go in there and grab that Mission. I get the Pico de Gallo on the side. You may like it differently. Get the Bryant, which is great. The Lauren. So many amazing hamburgers, that great restaurant quality hamburger. One of the fine delicacies we afford ourselves in life. You're not going to find a better one than you will at Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. All right, one of the debates that is out there now, and a lot of people are a little bit distracted, shall we say, with the coaching search. Sometimes people forget that we still got 2 games left to play. We may actually have 3. You say, Steve, we're not going to beat Ole Miss. Believe it or not, we might actually qualify for an APR Bowl at 5-7. Now, many of you have said, Steve, I just want the season to end. And I get that. I understand that. It's been very frustrating. In many respects, I think it's a new season. A lot of discussion about Will Rogers and Woody Marks potentially playing this weekend. As Greg Knox said on Monday, so astutely, Greg, he goes, we got a chance to go win the state championship. It's a new coach. There's a new air, I guess you could say. And I understand we've had some really good practices. Last week, I was told all week long that we were just kind of going through the motions. And it showed on Saturday. But I understand we've had a little more pep in our step this week. Let's say Riders comes back, knocks off the rust a little bit against Southern Miss, and then probably playing his last ball game at Davis Wade Stadium on Thanksgiving. I don't know what to expect. But let's say we earn bowl eligibility, or we backdoor our way in at 5-7 again. And from what I understand from Jerry Palm's discussions today, of the teams projected to be 5-7, Mississippi State's number 2 in APR. And there's not going to be enough bowl slots. So many of you are thinking, hey, this thing ends on Thanksgiving. There's a good chance we're going to get a bowl invite. You got to beat Southern Miss. You lose Southern Miss, all bets are off, right? And Southern Miss, obviously, very excited about the ball game and kind of wound up, of course, to see a vulnerable Mississippi State team on the other sideline. They hadn't beaten us in the last 5 meetings. Got to go back to 88 when Southern Miss had a win over Mississippi State. And so the thing that I ask, again, Steve, how do you feel about us playing in a bowl game? Guys, it's not so much the game that matters to me than it's the bowl practices, especially with the fact that we're about to make a coaching change. Those bowl practices always matter, but when you're in the process of bringing a new staff in, not to say you're going to go through a bunch of wholesale changes and things like that, change your philosophy, change your offense. I suspect it'll be the status quo, but if you saw in 17, we had a bunch of coaches leave us, and basically the GAs and the other assistant coaches led us to victory over Lamar Jackson and Louisville in the Gator Bowl. Right? And I also think, too, when I consider everything that our players have gone through in the last 12 months, there's all this discussion last year, middle of the year, Mike Leach needs to be fired. If he doesn't win the Egg Bowl, we got to let him go. We end up having a 9-win season. one of the only non-win seasons in school history. We got the egg back, won one of the best bowl games in our school's history, and finished in the top 20. That said, that wouldn't have been a very enjoyable bowl trip for those kids. Zach Arnett had been named the interim coach when Coach Leach was out in Texas dealing with some of his health issues. And so he went in Leach's place to the little pre-bowl press conference. And you didn't know it at the time, but Mike was already having some issues. Then Mike Leach passes away, devastating to so many of us. And as difficult as it was for all of us, those players, their loss was so much more severe than ours. And of course, Mike had some friends around town. I've had a chance to visit with so many of them. People that Mike and Sharon had dinner with regularly and took trips together and things like that. Had morning coffee with. The Leaches were not holed up, in some palace somewhere kind of far removed from our Starkville community. You guys are well aware of the things that Mike did for the WTF restaurant. He loved that place, loved those people, did what he could to help them, but he didn't put it in the paper. He didn't go post a picture of him and the owner handing her a check on Instagram, right? Much different deal. Mike Leach is a different guy. He did things for the right reasons and not for the photo op. And you can only begin to imagine, as much as we cherished him, how much our players did. That's not to say that, Leach was always, had the closest relationship with all the players, but he's their coach, right? Then you wonder, hey, well, so-and-so's going to get in the portal, and this guy's going to get in the portal, and then so-and-so's contacting me about getting in the portal. And there's all the stress and anxiety of that, and then we promote Zach Arnett. That kind of stabilizes some things, and everybody kind of stands at ease. Well, then you find out that, hey, everybody on offense is leaving. We're going to run a different scheme. So now you got the spring to kind of get up to speed, make sure everybody understands that, and then try to go out here and have a big season and build on last year's success. And then we don't. It's been a tumultuous year for the Mississippi State football player. And I don't care if we end up in the Birmingham Bowl or not. Those kids deserve a nice memory. After all they've been through, I think it'd be a wonderful thing. Now, you don't have to go. I'm going to encourage you to go. But you don't have to go. And, of course, there's always the self-loathing Mississippi State fan. But, Steve, we didn't earn it. Well, no, we did. These are the rules they put together before the season started and said this is who goes to bowl games. We don't get to pick that. But some people are saying, hey, we should pass on that. We should be better than a 5-7 bowl game. You know what? You're entitled to your opinion. I hope Zach Selman doesn't agree with you, though. Because I think our student athletes deserve a chance to leave here with a very positive experience. Now, of course, you beat Southern Miss and you find a way to beat Ole Miss. It's a different dynamic entirely. But there's a really good chance that we're going to get three games this year, despite everything. But you got to go out here and beat Southern Miss and hopefully beat Ole Miss. If you don't, you kind of leave it in the hands of the committee, but you still got a chance. And so I'm not going to sit here and say, well, it's a great year, went to a bowl game. I just think when you look at the unprecedented nature of what our players have gone through and what our staffers and our fan base have gone through, we deserve a chance to celebrate a little bit. And the fact that we've already announced a coaching change, as I touched on this earlier this week, first time in 85 years that we hadn't had a coach finish the regular season. So it's a very, very rare undertaking here at Mississippi State. So not only have your players seen their previous coach pass away unexpectedly, they saw his replacement get fired mid-season. And I get it. Maybe some guys say, you know what, I think I'm done here. I'm going to go ahead and get in the portal. And I don't know if you know this, but the portal is already open for our players. It's true, because of the coaching change. So that's already open. Now, at this point, I'm not aware of anybody going in. And I think in the end, everybody will want to finish the season together. And it's going to be up to Greg Knox and these ongoing assistants to say, you know what, hey, let's make this about Mississippi State. Let's make this about this team and these seniors. Let's try to salvage something of the year. But I am very much in favor of playing in a bowl game, especially when you've got the continuing coaches to kind of help with all that stuff. And then the new coaches, of course, can start outlining the vision for recruits. There's some legalities with all that, but you can have some people already, certified as recruiters for the university. As soon as a new coach is hired, they can work on that aspect of it. So it's not like you've got some, quote, lame duck coaches that are, having to have conversation with recruits and not know what to tell them. Also of note, too, you're going to have some of your coaches that are going to have a chance to kind of audition to stay on. Depending on who we hire, you never know how that's going to go. But I would suggest that there'll be some people retained. I would expect that. Not even knowing who's going to get hired, there will be some people that'll be held over as part of the transition team. I think there's some people, on the recruiting staff that'll be retained, institutions at this university, but also people that work hard for Mississippi State. So it's an interesting dynamic. And then we talked so much about coaching changes and things of that nature. So, as I mentioned on the show Monday, we need to really have somebody in place by the SEC Championship game weekend. The portal opens. Again, it's already open for our players, but the portal opens, and so we've got to be able to attack because we're going to have to rely on the portal a lot this year to kind of flip this roster. You only get to get 3 weekends in December to host official visitors. Now, yeah, you can host some midweeks, but the longer the search goes, the less time you have to recruit, and also to recruit your own players to stay, and also to begin recruiting players out of the transfer portal. And you've got to be able to tell them who's going to coach them and what your philosophy is going to be and what their roles are going to be. So it's interesting. I'm just going to tell you now, I would expect this search to go on at least through the regular season. At least. I mean, we're already 2 days into this, and people are already getting antsy. They're like, Steve, can we just hire somebody? Guys, we just fired him Monday. So, yeah, you need to buckle up because any coach that's really worth anything, right, is still going to be coaching his team through the regular season, and that school is not going to grant permission for that coach to interview with us before their season's over. That's not to say that their agent, their reps, can't speak to us and say, hey, here are our salary demands, our contract demands, and then you can kind of whittle it out and say, yeah, I think we can do this. And then by the time you get done with the regular season, well then, and only then, can you have a formal sit-down. But by the time we get there, because you can talk to third parties and that kind of stuff, we'll have a pretty good idea of who we want. It's not like we're just kind of sitting around doing nothing, waiting for the season to end. I've already confirmed Mississippi State working with Turnkey as the search firm. Their representatives are already out calling agents of potential candidates and candidates themselves to gauge their interest in our job. That can happen. We can do that, right? We just can't interview them. So you have this big funnel of candidates, and there are a bunch of them. There's a lot of people out there, they'll say, hey, well, I know so-and-so's interested. That doesn't mean we're interested. And there are other people that we're interested in that may not be interested in us. And we'll figure that out. The search committee will help. And we'll whittle this list of candidates down to a workable number. And then begin to have some very real and meaningful conversations. Because, hey, we're not going to go out here and waste our time. Like if we're going to pay $7 million, we're not going to go get a guy that's already making $8 million. And his buyout's $20 million. We're not going to waste our time with that. So the search committee helps you navigate through that. Here are the people that have interest. Here are the people that fit the profile. Here are the people in your price range. That's how it works. It's not like we're just cold calling. It's not like the days when Charlie Shira just picked up the phone and called Ron Polk, who was at Miami, and said, hey, how would you feel about coming to be the baseball coach? That was the search committee. There was no process. There was no firm. And Ron Polk's like, hey, well, let me think about it. And then Polky goes and talks to Ron Frazier, and they kind of figure this thing out. We fly Ron out to Baton Rouge for the LSU Mississippi State game. We wine him and dine him, have a good time. It's a different day and time these days. telecommunications has changed the way we do business, right? So you can have some conversations with some third parties before you get permission to actually speak to a candidate. That's true, and that's going on. That's happening now. That's been going on for days. And so these people will do their job and put together a pool of candidates, and then Zach Selman and those that he entrusts as part of his search committee will begin to figure out who is the best fit for Mississippi State, and then we'll begin to interview those candidates. We'll bring the preferred candidate to campus. By the time we do, the deal is pretty much done. Contracts may not be signed or executed, but you don't bring people to campus if you're not serious about hiring them. Guys, I saw the whole tweet thing yesterday, the Tweetgate. There's a couple things that I want to say about that. Let me get my breath here for a second, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Okay, do you really think that Liberty, who is 10-0 right now, and battling to be in a New Year's Six bowl game and have a perfect season, is going to grant permission for their coach to fly to Starkville, Mississippi, and sit down and talk to us about being our next coach the day after we fire a coach? Let that sink in for a second. And I love the fact there's so many people that they get invested in a false narrative, and it's like an echo chamber. You can't tell them anything that makes sense. Well, let me tell you this. If you don't have those context clues or the ability to have some deductive reasoning, how about I've already confirmed that it didn't happen? And maybe you don't want to take my word for it. You have the right to be wrong. I'm going to be wrong about a lot of things during the search. I'm going to misjudge some things, but I can tell you that. I'm not wrong about that. We hadn't interviewed anybody on our campus yesterday. This didn't happen. And again, why would Liberty be okay with that? And people would say, well, hey, this guy's done this and whatever. He snuck away and came and talked to us. Well, that would constitute a breach of contract that in most cases would alleviate a buyout. So there's millions of dollars at stake, not to mention then I suspect that the other school would probably have a pretty good case of tampering against Mississippi State. So not only would the coach be out a bunch of money, we could be out a bunch of money too. We would never sneak somebody on campus without knowledge of their employer. Now, I understand there's a lot of professional courtesies and things like that, but there is a way you do business. You can rest assured that everybody associated with the search, from Zach Selman to Tom Green to everybody else, Joey, everybody else on that team, is doing what they can on a daily basis to find the individual that is best suited for our needs in the future for football. You can rest assured. Nobody's just kind of sitting around thinking, okay, we'll just wait. No. I got too many friends in agent circles that tell me their clients are getting calls regularly from our search firm to ask what their thoughts are on Mississippi State, what their salary demands are, what's important to them. They're doing the due diligence to help Zach Selman facilitate this search. That's what they're there for. And so it's important to understand that. There is a process. There is a protocol that has to be followed. We got a ball game this weekend. I'm going to encourage you right now. Again, we'll have daily updates, but I'm going to encourage you right now to kind of shift your focus towards the Southern Miss game. And if you're on the fence about coming, get off the fence and get on the road. And come be a part of this crowd. It's 11 a.m. kick. You can come up the night before or come up the morning of, come to the ball game, cheer for the Bulldogs, ring a cowbell. Hopefully we get a W. And you go home. And you come back again on Thanksgiving against you-know-who. But no, I don't expect us to have a coach hired by the Egg Bowl. If we do, it'll be a surprise. And a lot of us, to understand, this is kind of an unprecedented situation. A lot of people say, hey, we fired Mullen and we had Moorhead like 2 days later. It's true. But you forget Mullen played in the Egg Bowl. That was the Nick Fitzgerald game, right? So Nick Fitzgerald was injured in that ball game. And Dan was still here. Now, he was scheduled to go visit Tennessee, and talk to John Curry about the job up there. But Dan Mullen had already informed Dr. Keenum and John Cohen earlier in the year that this is the year he was going to take a job somewhere else. So we had a head start, even though we didn't have public knowledge that Dan was leaving. Now, the week of the Egg Bowl, I'm hearing from all kinds of people that Dan's headed to Tennessee. And I actually have the open records around here somewhere, of those conversations about him going to Tennessee. And ultimately, Florida gets involved, and I understand that Scott Strickland called John Cohen the week of the Egg Bowl, and John told him, hey, I get it, but you can't talk to him until after the game. And once Florida got involved, Tennessee got nudged out. So all that was going on behind the scenes, that we're supposed to be playing the game of the year, right? You knew how important that game was for us. And your head football coach had a foot out the door. And our coaches were speaking openly in practice about leaving, going to Tennessee in front of your players. It's a true story. And so I share all that with you to make sure you kind of understand. The fact that we have fired a coach in season is going to elongate this search in many respects, just because of the fact that the candidates that we want to talk to are still playing. And while we can have some conversation with third parties, as far as having formal interviews, that's going to be a little bit. That's not to say that we can't have contact with the people that can help facilitate that change. And by the time we get to the end of the regular season, we certainly will have a good idea of the direction we want to go. Like, this whole funnel of candidates won't be, a dozen wide by the time we get ready to play the Egg Bowl. We think about the whole Michigan State thing. Michigan State is a mess up there. I'm told they're going to have to overpay for a coach. There was some discussion about Willie Fritz headed to Northwestern. Northwestern has now decided to keep their interim coach. 2 weeks ago, that really wasn't the case. Not even last week. I was told, hey, you know what? Willie Fritz may end up at Northwestern. Well, then they win the game. They're going to be bowl eligible under some really difficult circumstances this year, so they've elected to keep their coach. And that's how things change, right? There are a lot of people that kind of operate under a worst-case scenario mindset. And when you're in leadership, you have to consider that. That's one of the things my wife and I talk about all the time. Like, if anything happens, she goes, why do you always assume the worst? I said, it's not that I'm assuming the worst, I'm preparing for it. Mentally, I'm preparing for it. Okay, so if this happens, then this is how I'll respond. And you prepare for it. And that's kind of like, read the John Maxwell book, right? Everybody that operates under the assumption, well, everything will be okay, will find themselves in a situation where nothing is okay. And just as the case with Zach Arnett this year. Zach Selman and his people, of course, unofficially, have already had some feelers out. Not as early as some people suggested. A lot of people out there want to defend their false narrative. But if you think Zach Selman just all of a sudden woke up Monday morning and said, you know what, yeah, I think we'll fire the football coach. No. There was a plan in place. That plan is now being executed. And a lot of people already 2 days in are already fed up with the search. And a lot of people want information that doesn't exist yet. It doesn't even exist in the mind of one Zach Selman. Everybody has a short list. Every responsible leader has a short list, especially in the world of athletics. Every year. Scott Strickland had one. Larry Templeton had one. Certainly John Cohen had one. There have been times in the past, that I've talked to John, and he's like, that basketball coach from that school, that guy's really impressive. I wrote his name down. I thought, you know what, if for some reason we're looking for a basketball coach, I want to talk to that guy. That's how it works. You keep that short list in your top drawer, and all of a sudden your football coach retires or decides to leave or takes another job or you got to fire him. You've already got a list of people that you've already felt some sense of interest in. And then you, of course, get into your search firm and that kind of stuff. But you start with the dream first, right? You swing for the fences first, and you get in a 2-strike count, you choke up, and you hope you can get a ground rule double or at least get on base, right? But how I think this thing plays out, I think what you're going to see is State's going to have difficulty landing a sitting Power 5 coach. That sentiment is already out there in agent circles. There's just not a lot of interest in our job on the Power 5 head coaching level at this point. Now, one thing that helps us is we're not a division anymore, right? Yes, Texas and Oklahoma are joining, so it's not going to get any easier, but at least we don't have to play Alabama every year and LSU every year. But it will likely be a sitting G5 coach or a Power 5 coordinator. And based on what I'm hearing, I think the Power 5 coordinator is probably secondary. I think you'd like to be able to go get somebody that knows how to run the show first, somebody that's proven to be able to move the football and score points, and somebody that can recruit our neck of the woods. And all three of those things are important, and not really one more important than the other. But after what we've gone through this year with a first-year head coach, a very green first-year head coach, and that's not a criticism, it's just a statement of fact. We need somebody that can hit the ground running. And not just we're hiring a coach, we're hiring a staff. We're hiring a coach that can have boots on the ground and ready to work immediately. Immediately. The last thing we need, and we're trying to recruit our own players to stay and other players to come, is to have a coach here with a partial staff. Okay, well, yeah, we hired this offensive coordinator from Blue Mountain State, and his old drinking buddy's going to be the OC, and we're not sure who the DC is going to be. And all of a sudden, you start reaching out and trying to hire people, and people are like, I'm not going to hitch my wagon to that. Guy's a first-year coach. Look at what happened last year to Arnett and his staff. Kevin Barbay and those guys have packed up and left App State and moved down there with their family, and less than a year later, they got to move again. And don't think that doesn't factor into the equation when you're getting ready to fill out a staff. That's why it's so important for us to be able to hire a sitting head coach that can bring a staff. Look at how seamless it was when we hired Leach. Now, it makes us a lot of money, when there is unrest and there are hiring decisions to make, and we're having to get on the phone and call around and make these calls and things of that nature. And because, you guys have interest, so we have to go out there and try to get information. It drives subscriptions for us. In times of confusion and crisis, people turn to us. And so, it's good for our business, but I don't know how good that is for Mississippi State, especially at this important juncture. And again, think about what we've been through as a program. Recently I ran the transfer rates, right? We talked about that on the show. The three worst transfer rates in the Southeastern Conference since the portal opened. Tennessee, who had an NCAA scandal, and then Mississippi State and Auburn. The similarities between State and Auburn, there's one. 2 coaching changes in 5 years, and guess what? We just made another one. So you're going to have players transfer. You're going to have some roster upheaval. Be prepared for that. And I know, I love you all to death, but some of you make my head hurt. As soon as some walk-on enters a transfer portal, we're going to have all this pearl clutching on Facebook. Like, oh my gosh, they don't love us anymore. Guys, this is the nature of the beast. It's as simple as that. This is how things work. And that's why it's so important to bring a staff in pretty much intact that you can begin to empower people and divide up responsibilities and say, hey, here's your corners coach. Hey, coach, go get with your guys and let's take an inventory of who plans to stay and who doesn't. And we got to adjust our recruiting interest based on the feedback of that meeting. And you got to recruit those guys to stay. You can't just have the head coach got to deal with 85 scholarship players and 120 kids on a roster having to go have exit interviews or recruiting interviews with their player. You got to have some people involved. You got to be able to divide responsibilities up between capable individuals and move this thing forward. And if all you've got is a head coach and then half the staff that's still here is spending their time interviewing to try to find their next step, that's not a good situation for roster retention or recruiting. And so based on the things that I'm hearing, of course, you got to get somebody to say yes. You got to get somebody to agree to terms. You got to get somebody that fits. But I suspect it's going to be a sitting G5 coach. That's what I think today. I may feel differently tomorrow, and I continue to hear that if we go with the Power 5 coordinator, Jeff Lebby is probably near the top of that list, if not the top of that list. Former Ole Miss OC and current Oklahoma AD, got some connections through the Selman family time at Oklahoma. So, yeah, there's some connections there. And if it gets down to us hiring a Power 5 coordinator, we could do a whole lot worse than Jeff Lebby. Now, to be fair, when Jeff Lebby left Ole Miss, I thought, well, that'll be interesting what kind of offense Ole Miss is going to put on the field without Lebby, because Lebby was kind of praised as being this innovative play caller, and he was. But Ole Miss hadn't really missed a beat without him. But you look at what's happened at Oklahoma, offensively, things are improving. So, yes, if we have to go the coordinator route, of course, Glenn Schumann's name has been mentioned. He's co-DC at Georgia. If we have to go with an OC or a coordinator, I think you got to go with an OC. We got to get an offensive-minded coach. Just my opinion. Schumann didn't play college football. Did you know that? True. Never been recruited. And so when you begin to work through the dynamics of all this, what is best for Mississippi State? Zach Summons, the guy that's going to have to make that call. But based on the chatter that's out there, I think ideally we want to be able to get a coach that already has a staff together. We bring those people in and take care of business rather than showing up and then kind of having to kind of work our way through it piecemeal at a time. We need a group that can come in here and get right to work. That's the important part of this. All right, it's time for the top 10 list. As always, brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Blair Chandler is a mortgage professional. Many of you have mortgage needs. You know it. Maybe you're looking to refi. Maybe you're looking to buy a home. And that's really what more people are looking to do now, right? Whether you're being transferred, being relocated, look no further than Blair Chandler. He's licensed to practice in multiple states. We've had several Boneyard listeners that have had loans closed through Blair Chandler. You need to have somebody with the know-how to get things done. That's Blair. Now works for Priority One Mortgage. 22 years of experience, guys. Top 1% close ratio in the country. Back-to-back-to-back years. Yeah, stick with the winners. That's Blair Chandler. His phone number is 601-500-2344. 601-500-2344. That's his personal cell. That's not a receptionist. That's not a call center. That's directly to Blair. You can deal directly with him. He is a Bulldog, has a season ticket holding application every year for multiple sports in Mississippi State. Has a place here. I like to keep business in the family whenever I can. You do too, I know. So hit up Blair Chandler at closewithblair.com. All right. We're in the midst of change. And so I thought, let's do a top 10 about changes. Songs about changes. That's the only constant in life is change, right? I've heard people say before, it's like, you live day to day, nothing ever changes. You look back a year later and everything's different. It's kind of funny how that works. I'm a guy, too, that's not, I'm not exactly a guy that embraces change either. I like things as they are, right? I want things to get better, but therefore I'll be content. But here are your top 10 songs about changes, and I think making their debut on the top 10 list on this show. We've been doing this now for nearly 4 years. It's the Deftones. I'm not a big Deftones fan. I think a lot of those songs sound the same. Chino Moreno, of course, he was on one of our Cypress Hill songs last week. Cypress Hill got a lot of response to that list, too. So thank you for your comments. But we're going to go with Deftones' Change and the House of Flies. That's probably my favorite Deftones song, as a matter of fact. I'm not a huge Deftones guy. I think a lot of it sounds the same. It's kind of monotonous. And some people love them. I don't. But that song fits. Number 9, going back to the debut album. One of the best bands of the early 90s, man. It's Candlebox. You know Candlebox. Don't get left too far behind, right? And it's the song Change. Change from the debut album from Candlebox. An amazing song. Kevin's vocals on that are absolutely ridiculous. Number 8, a lot of Bulldog fans probably feel this way. It's Sheryl Crow's A Change Would Do You Good. I love Sheryl Crow. I do. Sang background for Michael Jackson for a while. Did you know that? True story. Number 7, kind of a duet here, and I love it. I do. Eric Clapton kind of had a resurgence in the early 90s after doing the Unplugged show. Had a great... We've all been there before. You got big weekend plans. For some reason, it just didn't work out. Maybe life gets in the way. Maybe you want to head down to the casino. Maybe take some of their money. I like to do that. Well, MyBookie's new and improved online casino is here to change the game for you. Dive into truly realistic casino experiences featuring the latest in slots, progressive jackpots, and live dealer action, all from the comfort of your own home. Take advantage of weekly blackjack tournaments and a brand new collection of high-end games for a chance at real cash rewards. The MyBookie Casino provides a Las Vegas experience when the action's in your hands. And the best part is you don't even have to wear pants. How cool is that? Your adventure at the MyBookie Casino begins today with a generous sign-up bonus using promo code Boneyard. That's promo code Boneyard to secure yourself a sweet deposit bonus. And that's not all. Because their revamped loyalty program ensures that you'll be showered with rewards, including free spins, cashback offers, and a host of exclusive VIP perks, the more you play, the more you'll win. Play anytime, anywhere with the MyBookie Casino. Again, that's promo code Boneyard. Song with Babyface called Change the World. Babyface sang back up on that. Babyface, phenomenal. Guys, if you were dating in the early 90s and you didn't have Babyface as one of your cassettes or CDs, you probably didn't have a lot of great dates. I'm just kind of laying it out there for you. Because if you put Babyface on and she didn't at least start holding your hand, it was time to take her home. Just telling you. Eric Clapton's Change the World, number 7. Number 6, I know a lot of people like this guy. And other people really don't like him. He's kind of polarizing at times, but a very talented guy. It's John Mayer's Waiting on the World to Change. Great track. You know, again, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the sentiment behind the Garth Brooks song. You know, you can't get Garth Brooks stuff on streaming platforms. Garth's kind of stingy that way. He's like, if you want my music, doggone it, you're going to buy it. But the whole song about not letting the world change you. You're not going to change the world, but don't let the world change you. Number 5, one of my favorite songs from one of my favorite bands and one of my favorite albums from them. It's a debut album from the rock band Tesla. Going back to Mechanical Resonance, that album, what an amazing debut. And what was so great about that album, a lot of people said, the sophomore slump. No, the Great Radio Controversy came out even better than Mechanical Resonance. But again, Mechanical Resonance, kind of putting that thing together, it wasn't a real, cohesive album in many respects. There were a lot of different sounds and stuff. It was very diverse. And so the flow of the album is a little bit up and down. But the great song Changes begins with this amazing piano from Brian Wheat. The next thing you know, it's a rock song, and Jeff Keith just wails it out. But again, number 5, Tesla, Changes. Number 4, I know my friend BJ Cummings will be excited about this. And no, it's not Widespread Panic, BJ. No, it's not. It's Blind Melon, going back to their debut album, Change. And another amazing song. I don't know that album, that first Blind Melon record, and listen, I Get Mouthful of Cavities was really cool too, But that first album was nearly flawless. I mean, it really was. And if you are a young person today and you're looking for something super cool to listen to that's got an amazing vibe from an amazing singer and also some ties to Mississippi, man, it's true, man. And we love them. We do, man. We love those guys so much, man. And even had some people hit me up and said, Steve, next time you do Rock Vegas, let's see if we can't get a Blind Melon reunion and get those guys one more chance to say goodbye to everybody. I don't think it's going to happen. I did have some conversations with some people, and it's never really went anywhere. But it's Blind Melon, Change. Trust me, listen to that album. Don't just listen to No Rain. Listen to the whole thing, not just Tones of Home. Put the whole thing on. Listen to it from start to finish. It's quite a journey. Number 2, a song that many people know just because of its use in commercials and things of that nature. It's David Bowie's Changes. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. But it's Changes. David Bowie, one of the most amazing performers of my lifetime. Dave was a guy, too, that was in recovery later in life and spoke extensively about that everything in his life was affected negatively when he drank. And gave it up. And reports are that he died clean and sober. So we'll honor Dave Bowie today with Changes. Number 2, another one of my favorites, man. It's Ozzy. Going back to the Black Sabbath days. This song was actually re-recorded a few years ago with Ozzy and his daughter. But we're going with the original. Changes from Black Sabbath. It's a really sad song, and the vocal on it is amazing. I think in many respects, if they remastered this thing, I think it could be a hit again. The piano at the beginning doesn't necessarily match the subject matter, so it's kind of interesting in that respect. It's an interesting dichotomy because the music sounds almost kind of happy, kind of, Stephen Foster-esh, right? And then there's Ozzy comes in with this killer vocal about going through changes. Number one for me, though, and I think we're going to recognize the GOAT, in my estimation. Some of you may disagree. That's okay. We're all entitled to our opinions, but it's Tupac's Changes. I love the song, of course. The backing vocal, of course, is from Bruce Hornsby and The Range. It's an amazing track and a very socially conscious track. I like musicians and artists that make us think. I don't like people that are just, agent provocateurs for the sake of attention. But I thought Tupac Shakur was a guy, while he was a tortured genius in many respects, and at times a little bit misguided, was a guy that really wanted positivity in his community and wanted to really shine a light on some of the things that he dealt with and grew up around. And I learned earlier that he was named after an Incan god, an Incan sun god, something like that. But anyway, Tupac Shakur, it's Changes. And, that's one of the things he talked about is, we've never seen a black president. Now we have. And sadly, he didn't live long enough to see that. But there are a lot of people, of course, that thought Tupac's still alive and just hiding from the IRS or whatever. But recently they made an arrest in the Tupac Shakur killing. Not sure where that goes. I've watched so many of those documentaries. But Tupac Shakur, man, in my estimation, one of the greatest lyricists of all time, regardless of genre. And a guy that certainly had an edge about him. And this song is one of those things you look at and you begin to realize, this is guy really had something to say. He did. And at times he struggled to say it. I mean, Hit 'Em Up, of course, one of the greatest diss tracks of all time. Probably not his shining moment as a human, but certainly you talk about keeping it real. Tupac certainly did. And gone way too soon. So Tupac's Changes, your number one song today on our Songs About Changes. Top 10 songs about changes. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out and let us know. We might just use them. Best way to do that is to find Roy Samante, the keeper of the list, at Dogmatic67 on Twitter. That's DAWGMATIC67. You can find our great list on Spotify with that same handle. Just subscribe. And then those lists will show up. And I've had so many people that have said, what, Steve, I kind of like the fact that I can learn about new music and be reminded of some old favorites on the show. One of the things that we do. Never thought that would last as long. When I first started talking about doing top 10 lists, we did a lot of different things. I've even done my top 10 dinosaurs. And one guy hit me up and said, hey, my kid is love watching cartoons. Could you do your top 10 cartoon characters? We've done all those kind of things, but it's kind of gravitated to music. And at times we'll do movies, but nothing is off the table. Nothing. Sometimes it's hard for me to put it together. Like people say, what's the 10 most significant plays in Mississippi State football history? I could get lost in that list. I certainly could. But again, thanks for your support of the top 10 list as always. Thanks to Blair Chandler at closeatblair.com for sponsoring the top 10 list. And more changes are on the way. So enjoy our list about changes, not only at Mississippi State, but in your own life. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. I love Campus Bookmart. If you don't, you will once you get to know them. To know them is to love them. Go by and see their smiling faces next time you're in town. Pick up some Interlochen MSU gear. When we have a new coach, they'll have all the new stuff, right? Whoever it is, there'll be a T-shirt, a commemorative T-shirt for when we hire them. It's what we always do. And they'll have it first. And we want to be able to support that, get out and support the team. Show the new coach we support him. You all had those Dan the Man shirts. You did. Then you had your Pirate shirts. I don't know if we had one for Zach. I don't think so. But all that understood, Campus Bookmart has what you need to outfit your family, your RV, your home, your pet, your office, anything Mississippi State related that you want some decor for. or whether you need to just kind of update your wardrobe, you can do that at Campus Bookmart. If you can't make it to town, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a promo code. It's a phrase that pays. It's BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that gets you free shipping on all orders over $75 and any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. Again, that's campusbookmart.net. All right, let's talk a little bit of men's basketball here. Is it just me, or do you think that we're maybe playing better than many of us anticipated without Tolu? That's not to say that we won't be a better team with Tolu. We certainly would be. But Jimmy Bell has really stepped up. Many of you had a chance to watch us play North Alabama last night. It was a tussle for a little bit. I mean, it was. But your Bulldogs now 3-0. Of course, beginning of the year, we go to Chicago. We take on Arizona State and went Trey Fort's coming out party. I mean, Trey Fort's a guy that's well-traveled, too. I mean, and that's the thing I think about again. Chris Jans identifying the pieces that he needs to move this program forward. Amazing. Amazing. I'm excited. I know you guys are excited too. Of course, we follow that up with a win over UT Martin, 87-63, and then last night, 81-54. And again, I wasn't in person, but watching that game at times, it was a real grind. I mean, you look up and it's like, how are these guys hanging in here with us? Of course, they're 2-0. I'm not going to sit here and talk up the competition, but it's one of those deals where, State gets out, man, 21-8 lead, or we're plus 13, and you're thinking, we're fixing to wax these dudes. And then next thing you know, you look up, and man, they got a chance to pull this thing within a couple points. We get into halftime, and we're only up 8. Pretty crazy. And then next thing you know, State really gets it going, and DJ Jeffries, I thought, pretty streaky at times, but really got us going. And yeah, you look up there, after a three-pointer from Tim Smith Jr., State is only up 3. And before you could get uncomfortable, it's back out to 13. And then State, kind of puts this thing away and was never really threatened down the stretch. Looks like we led by as many as 21. And then, I guess 22 after the DJ Jeffries 3. And then we put this thing away with a couple of shots late. And 81-54 winners, plus 27 for the Bulldogs. But, when Tolu went down, I started thinking, man, every game is going to be a grind for us, and we're not going to be where we need to be. But you look up now 3 games into this thing, and the team is playing pretty well, and you can only begin to imagine how much better we'll be once Tolu gets back. And you look at all these minutes that Jimmy Bell Jr. is getting. This is a guy that averaged 4 points a game in West Virginia. He had 14 last night to lead us. Josh Hubbard off the bench had a dozen. Now, again, Josh is a volume shooter. He's 4 of 13. Hit a couple threes early. Bulldogs 10 of 15 from the line last night, 7 of 26 from the three-point line. But how great is it for us to have an inside-out game now? You've got to respect at 3. And Trey Ford, again, 22 minutes of action, just the 9 points. But, again, knocking down some big shots for us. And DJ Jeffries, listen, you know what DJ is. DJ is a max energy guy. He's going to get out there and rebound. He had a couple of rebounds last night. Just really showed how athletic he is. 8 points for him. But let's take a quick look at our statistics through 3 games as we kind of begin to develop some identity here in the early portion of the season. And again, I just think about these minutes that Jimmy Bell is getting is only making him and Mississippi State better. That's the big thing there. Is now you think, okay, hey, we were hoping Jimmy Bell could give us some minutes and be serviceable. He's been better than that. Trey Fort currently leads Mississippi State in scoring with 41 points, averaging 13.7 a game. A little bit off his average last night. That's okay. Josh Hubbard, the very talented freshman that we flipped from Ole Miss late, 40 points total on the year, 13.3 in the game as an average. And then Jimmy Bell, again, a guy that was averaging about 4 points in his career. Guy's 11.3 and then averaging a double-double, nearly 12 boards a game. Also leads a team with 6 blocks. Cam Matthews is always the blue-collar grunt guy, kind of does everything you need him to do. Don't need him to fall in love with a three-point shot, obviously, but 8.7 points a game for him. Pulling down just over 6 boards a game. Like to see that come up a little bit. But, Cam's a guy that's out there setting those screens on the elevator. A guy that's making things happen. Shaquille Moore, of course, after a 2-game suspension, was back last night, played in 15 minutes, and had 8 points for us. And so you start thinking about this logjam at guard. How are you going to figure this thing out? I think it's going to depend on matchups. I mean, you know what Rams Davis can do. Sean Jones has done some good things. And you start working through this like with Andrew Taylor. I mean, this is a guy that hadn't started a game for us, but has put some pretty meaningful minutes for us together. We need him to pick it up a little bit offensively. We're going to need him to be a prolific scorer for us from the outside. I know he's a role player right now, but we're going to need him to kind of get that shot going. But you like it. You like the look of things right now. I do. I certainly think that this team is capable of some pretty big things and playing better than I anticipated. I really thought, hey, we'd play pretty well. We'd win these games. But when you look at the margin with which we're playing now and the fact that we're able to get so many guys minutes, that's going to bode well for us once we get into SEC play. And really none of these games have been close. I mean, yeah, North Alabama were kind of stayed within 10 points for much of that ball game, but when it got to be closing time, it's the Bulldogs pulling away, kind of showing the difference in the talent differential in the weight program. But again, 71-56 winners against Arizona State, 87-63 winners against UT Martin, and then 81-54 last night. Now, we're going to hit the road here, head up to Uncasville, Connecticut, and we're going to open that event with Washington State. That's going to be on Saturday. It's an 11 a.m. tip. Same time the Bulldog football team is playing, so maybe set your DVR and go back and watch that game later. Now, Washington State, obviously, the first, I hate to say it this way because Arizona State had so many, moving parts to this thing. And yes, they're a Power 5 team, but, we're going to go play again on a neutral court against a Power 5 opponent. Those things are important. When you start thinking about the net, makes that game all the more important. But Washington State currently 2-0 on the year. Not a real robust schedule for them so far. You could make the same claim against us. However, I do think that Arizona State team, while they were picked in the middle of the pack in the Pac-12, will get it together. But Washington State knocks off Idaho in their season opener, and then Prairie View A&M last Friday. And then they won't play again until Saturday. So an 8-day layoff for them. And you got to wonder how much that impacts them a little bit. But again, we're going to be in the Mohegan Sun Arena against Washington State. I like State to win that game. I think you guys do as well. And then on Sunday, we'll turn right back around and play either Northwestern or Rhode Island. And we'll talk more about those opponents on Friday's show. But pretty big weekend here for the Bulldogs. And you look at it and you say, hey, if you can get through this at 5-0, and let's say we pick up Northwestern, and I don't know what Rhode Island's going to do in their league this year, but a 5-0 start, considering that 3 of those first 5 games are away from Humphrey Coliseum, I think really bodes well for us when you start factoring in the net. And then next week we'll be back home against Nichols and then hit the road to Atlanta for the ACC SEC game challenge against Georgia Tech. So pretty interesting non-conference schedule coming up for the Bulldogs. And the way Jimmy Bell is playing right now and the fact that you're getting some quality minutes out of the freshman guy, Chall, I think that you look at it and say, you know what? Maybe this Chris Jans guy can coach. And not that there was ever any question. I mean, you saw what he did out there in New Mexico, and then last year with this kind of this hodgepodge roster that lacked the perimeter shooter, you begin to think, okay, we've addressed some of those needs in the offseason, and you're seeing the benefits of it now, and you don't even have your best player. Think about that. I mean, up until last night, we've been without 2 of our projected starters, and we're blowing people up. And again, these are teams we should handle. And this non-conference schedule is one you look at and say, you know what, it's going to prepare us a little bit, but it's not like we're playing a lot of blue bloods out there. But we are playing some Power 5 opponents that should be on par with us from a talent standpoint. You're playing some teams that have some guys that can play. I want to remind you guys, too, that Magnolia Madness game in Tupelo during the holiday break, it's going to be December 17th in North Texas. That is an NIL fundraiser. So whether you go to the game or not, we're going to encourage you to buy tickets. We want you to go because, number one, the Bulldogs are going on the road. Instead of us playing here while the students are gone, we're going to play in Tupelo, bring in the Bulldogs in North Texas to your neck of the woods. And we encourage you to go to the game, spend some money, give to NIL. But again, this is an NIL fundraiser for us. And so it is important that we pack it out. We need to sell every ticket. The Bulldogs deserve a capacity crowd. There's so many people that say, you know what, I'd love to go, but it's so difficult to get there. Well, now we're bringing the game to you, Tupelo. And we need all the Bulldogs in that neck of the woods and everybody in the Golden Triangle to plan to be there. It's a Sunday, and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So you can go to church, drive up there, go to the ball game, cheer the Bulldogs on to victory, and get home in time for dinner. So go ahead and begin to make plans for that. Again, not just because of the fact that it is a Bulldog basketball game, because you can watch a lot of those in Starkville. This is a very important one because there will be an NIL fundraiser attached to it. So we encourage you to go and be a part of that as often as you can be. And that's an important aspect of every bit of this, you know. The women knocked off UNO today. Robbie Falk with a really funny title. Robbie says, let me find the title. I want to give it to you in its entirety here. And Robbie also confirms, after speaking with Sam Purcell, that Ramani Parker is out for the season. Man, you hate to see that. You absolutely hate to see that. But Robbie's title in today's game, Bulldogs teach UNO a lesson on education, day at the hump. I texted him and I said, dude, that's an amazing title. And he's like, ha, 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 I thought it was good. It is good. It is good. Very funny. And, so let's look at the women's side of things here, too. The women off to a good start. Yeah, and again, you hate the news for Parker, you know, and you recently had a transfer, you know, so they're roster down 2 players here. But the ladies opened the season with a 77-42 win over Alcorn State. Last Friday, they take care of Southeastern Louisiana, 67-46, and then blast Jacksonville State, 84-45. And again, these games have not been competitive. And then today, the biggest blowout of the year, 87-26 over UNO. And again, that game played early. And again, that's Education Day. A lot of students from the greater Starkville area turned out to be a part of that. Now, the ladies will be on the road for the first time this season on Sunday in Nashville, Tennessee at Belmont. If you live in that neck of the woods, let me encourage you to turn out and go see them play. Not just because of the fact you're going to have a good time. They deserve to have your support. And again, you can get up, go to church, go to lunch, and then scoot on over to Belmont to watch the Bulldogs play. That should be a game that we win. Shouldn't be a problem for us. And we'll take a look at that a little bit later in the week. But again, ladies off to a good start. Really not having any anxiety so far as what's happened on the court. Let's take a quick look at the statistics and just kind of see who's standing out through 3 games. We're still kind of determining our identity a little bit. Still some moving parts, but very happy with what Sam Purcell and ladies have done through 4 games. Lady Bulldogs now 4-0. Guys, we've nearly doubled up our opponents. Mississippi State has scored 315 points and allowed us 159. We're averaging just under 80 points a game at 78.8 and allowing just under 40 at 39.8. How is that? 39-point scoring margin through 4 games. And yes, listen, one of the biggest variances in all of sport is the difference between the haves and the have-nots in women's basketball. That's just a true story. And I don't know why that is. You see some scores in women's basketball that are just absolutely ungodly. But look at some individual numbers here. Jerkalia Jordan, through 4 games, leading Mississippi State in minutes played at just under 27 minutes a game, averaging 19.8 a game, pulling down nearly 8 boards. He also has 15 steals. State has 44 as a team. She's got 15. Pretty impressive. 6 turnovers for herself against 10 assists. Like to see those assist numbers come up, and they'll have to in SEC play. Jessica Carter, and it seems like this whole Jessica Carter experience has been one of those things, she's on again, off again. Perhaps playing her best basketball of her career. 12.3 points a game, just over 8 boards and 10 blocks. State has 30 as a team. She has 10 of them. Debris Chapeau was somebody we expected to take a step up this year, and she has. 9.8 points a game, averaging 5.5 boards, also 6 blocks. It's been kind of a block party. A lot of people getting in on the defensive side. Erin Barnum, newcomer to Mississippi State, averaging 7.3 points a game, and been really good on the offensive glass. 11 of her 28 rebounds have been offensive boards, also 6 blocks on the year. Lauren Park Lane, not the school, the player, also putting in a lot of minutes for us. and 26 points total, and working this average about 6.5. But if you look at all this, it has been very much by committee. Once you get through Jakelia Jordan and Jessica Carter, you got a lot of people averaging a half dozen or better on this team. So the scoring, has been spread, pretty consistently up and down the roster. And you're playing a lot of players. And, of course, Ramani Parker's played in 2. Now she's done for the year. She was averaging 3 points a game. But 5.5 boards, one of the top rebounders on the team, and now she's done for the season. So this is a group, again, kind of finding a sense of itself. But you like the early returns, and you like what Sam Purcell is doing. And, again, you're starting to get the players in to fit his system. After we play the game at Belmont, the ladies will hit the road to Houston, Texas for a 3-game event called the Van Chancellor Classic. Congratulations to Van and his family, of course, former Bulldog that spent a lot of time coaching at Ole Miss. But we'll take on Clemson, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Tulsa there. That Clemson game will be awfully interesting. Probably the biggest challenge that we've had to date, without question. And then we'll get Pine Bluff and Tulsa. And so you look at that and say, hey, we ought to go 2-1, maybe 3-0 out there. But you feel good about where we sit. And this team, in many respects, is going to go as far as Jakelia Jordan can take her in many respects. But to have Jessica Carter playing the level she is very significant for Mississippi State. So that's your basketball recap. Again, brought to you by Campus Bookmart. A lot of basketball to come. And I was on the radio this morning with Bart Heisch. I love Bart. You guys do too. Bart, one of the fan favorites on our favorite basketball team of all time, that 96 team. And Bart is so incredible, man. Bart, just one of those, just a great person, a great ambassador for Mississippi State. And anytime that we can get together and talk with Bart, allow them on the Press Box show, to talk about sports. And I trust Bart. He's got us done some work for the university, kind of previewing this team. When Bart is excited about basketball, we should all be excited about basketball. Because I've had some conversations in the past. Bart is a guy that's a bit of an optimist, but when he tells you, I'm just a little worried about this and worried about that, Bart's not having those conversations right now. I think Bart likes the fact that we're getting such good guard play right now, and I hate to speak for him, but his emotion and positivity about this team is very infectious. He likes what we're doing. And I like what we're doing, but he has a lot more credibility in the room when it comes to basketball. And so when I see basketball people say, hey, you know what, this team's pretty good, I begin to imagine what we're going to look like when we get Tolu Smith back, a guy that could potentially be an All-American, right? You hate the fact that he's missing a non-conference. But again, the silver lining in all of this is the fact that Jimmy Bell is getting some very valuable minutes, and you begin to think about playing with both of those guys down low at the same time. It's pretty impressive. And listen, Tolu's a guy at times that's had some foul trouble. He did a better job with it last year. But, now he can get in there and play a little more physical because he's got a pretty quality reserve behind him. So great start to the men's and women's basketball season. If you hadn't been to the new Humphrey Coliseum, let me let you turn out. And so many people have said, Steve, the game day atmosphere in the Hump is so much better than it was. And there's still a few more amenities they're going to kind of detail out. By the time we get to SEC play, there's supposed to be some other things that we add and that we can be excited about. But, the main thing is we're winning. And we're winning impressively. And we're beating teams the way we should. We're not playing down the competition. How many non-conference games have we had last few years, especially on the men's side, that it was just like pulling teeth? We're playing like an SEC team should play. And, again, Chris Jans and his staff deserve a tremendous amount of credit, for what they've done with this program. Final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. If you're looking to come to Starkville this weekend and you're bringing a large group, or maybe you're on the fence about that, stay at the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Just Google it today and book through the Evolve website. You're thinking, oh, Steve, somebody's going to grab it. You don't know until you check. And whether you're looking to come from ball game weekends or basketball midweek games or perhaps baseball weekends, look no further than the Stark Vegas Clubhouse for your large group. Plenty of bedrooms. You got those 2 wet bars. You got the big kitchen area. You can go buy groceries and you can cook. Instead of you going and spending money at restaurants or spending money at local watering holes, you can just go buy groceries like you would at home and use their incredible kitchen to serve your family. And again, wake up on game day morning and Grandma's made cinnamon rolls. Or maybe Grandpa makes them. I don't know. But how nice would it be to have your entire family under one roof? Everybody have their own individual room. And then the common areas, we can all kind of get together and play some board games. We can watch some football. And everybody can just be there to kind of love on each other. Or maybe it's a bachelorette or a bachelor's weekend or whatever. Not a lot of neighbors around. So you can get everybody together and you can have a great time. That great fire pit area out there. Again, nobody really around you. It's in the old renovated clubhouse for the old golf course. What an amazing place to stay. And again, go to the Stark Vegas Clubhouse, Google it, and book through the Evolve website. We'll give you a promo code there too. It's BSR10. And I'm going to save you 10% on the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. If you went and booked individual hotel rooms, you're probably going to pay about twice as much, and then you don't get the BSR discount. Again, it's BSR10. And again, everybody can be together. What a wonderful experience that would be, especially if the kids live out of state. Maybe everybody just kind of makes a pilgrimage to Starkville for sporting events. How great would it be for everybody, but especially mom, to have all the babies under one roof? It's amazing. Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Much more affordable than you'd ever think. Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Book through the Evolve website. Promo code BSR10. All right. A little bit of a programming note here. We've made the decision that the next book is, we're going to start writing that next year. I hope to have it done by the summer. And so maybe we'll have it out next year by the holiday season. When the Bottom Falls, the new book, will be out next week. If you pre-ordered the book, they'll be arriving in the warehouse on or around Monday. I will go and sign them, and they will ship them out to you. So you should have your books by the end of next week. Give it a few days. And they'll be on the shelves next week as well. And you say, well, Steve, I know you're excited about the new book. Guys, I'm really excited about even the next book, book number 7. And I've already shared this some on social media. Book number 7, I'm happy to say, will be written with the full support of the university behind us. And I'm going to write a biography of Dudy Noble. True. The working title right now is The Dude, The Life and Times of Dudy Noble. Now, I don't know what you know about Dudy Noble, but he is one of the most accomplished athletes to ever wear the maroon and white. Went on to be a coach in multiple sports at Mississippi State, and ultimately your athletic director all the way up to 1959. And you know what? There's not a lot of information out there about Dudy Noble. And he was a guy that did some amazing things. He had his faults. He was very gruff and difficult to deal with. And so I've reached out to a lot of people in the Mississippi State community and said, hey, I'm thinking about taking this thing on. And everybody is like, wow. What a great idea for a book. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know how well this thing will sell. I think it'll do okay. But I'm not writing it for that reason. I think this is a book that Mississippi State needs. I think our fans need this. And one of the things that I love about writing is not just the exercise of typing or being able to break news or be able to put things out there that maybe you find interesting. But there are some books and some articles that you write for different reasons entirely. And this is one of them. We've all congregated at Dudy Noble Field, but most of our people have no idea who Dudy Noble was. Well, you've heard the name, but you don't know the stories. And so I'm going to get to work on that. Once we get through the coaching search, I'm going to begin the research on that. And I've been, again, told by the university that I'll have unfettered access. They'll get me in the archives. I'm told that there's some records over in the SEC office that some people are going to help me get, have access to those to be able to write about those things. I think this is one of those things when you begin to realize Dudy Noble, one of the most accomplished athletes to ever wear the Mississippi State uniform, and you look at the things that he did as a coach and administrator, has there been a more significant person in the history of Mississippi State athletics than one Dudy Noble? I would submit to you, no, there hasn't been. There absolutely hasn't been. And if you are out there researching Dudy Noble, there's not a lot of information online for you. And so I think there is a need for this book. I think it is a big part of our history. And to be honest with you, if I don't write this book, I don't think it'll ever get written. I don't know who else has the interest in doing something like this. And so I've reached a point in my career I can kind of write about what I want to write about because my books typically sell, right? And I've had so many people, since I put it out on Facebook, I was already pretty sure I was going to do it, and I put it on my Facebook group and said, hey, This is what I'm thinking about. The response has been overwhelming. The response from the university has been overwhelming. I've reached out to several people connected to the university and said, hey, here's what I'm kicking around. What do you think? Not one person has said, I don't know, Steve. Everybody has said, you know what? I don't know how well it'll sell, but I'll buy it. And I think most Mississippi State people want to buy it too. And I think it's important for us. We have to pool our talents together to celebrate our history. And had some conversations with Sid Salter, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. And I just talked to Sid. I said, Sid, this is what I'm thinking. And Sid's like, Steve, I think this is a worthwhile pursuit. Is it going to be a New York Times bestseller? No, it's not. It's a niche book in many respects. And as some would say, it's some pretty thin soup there. I don't think that it is. I texted with Chris Lamonis last night. I said, hey, here's what I'm going to do. And Chris is like, I don't even know a lot about him. And what's interesting, I uncovered this earlier this week when I was writing an article about in 1937, Dudy Noble coached the freshman football team to an undefeated and an unscored upon season. Those guys went on to be seniors and went 10-0-1. And Lamonis says, man, he did everything. Exactly, he did. And that's all the more reason to write it. Now, Dudy Noble also was a guy that had his own share of enemies. Dudy Noble was going to do things his way. And when you go back and you think about this, not only was he the most, 14 varsity letters? Think about that for a second, right? Of course, it was a different day and time back then. But once he became an administrator, he hired the winningest coach in school history, in Alan McKean, and ultimately had to fire him due to pressure from donors, and we've talked about that before. He hired Babe McCarthy, legendary basketball coach, and a very unconventional hire. Out of Baldwin, Mississippi, he was referee in basketball games, and he hired him. And Babe McCarthy ended up having a gymnasium named after him because he hired Jack Crystal. He hired Murray Warmoth. You say, Steve, who's that? Well, he coached here for 2 years, and he left and went to Minnesota. And guess what he did there? He won a national championship. He hired Darrell Royal in the same decade. And Darrell Royal coached for 2 years at Mississippi State. What did he do? Ultimately landed at Texas and became the greatest coach in the history of Texas football. Won multiple national championships. Has there ever been a better evaluator of sports talent than Dudy Noble? Think about that resume. Not just what he did as a player. Not just what he did as a coach. But the people that he hired and supported as an athletic director and the things they accomplished. And so it's incredible to think about that. And people always wonder, well, why did we name the stadium after him? Guys, we did that when he was still alive. It wasn't like just something in memoriam. And so I'm so excited about this. I get chills talking about it. I want to write this for my own intellectual curiosity. But I want to write this for you. And I want to honor this man. And it's going to be a very unvarnished, truth-telling story. We're going to tell the good, the bad, the indifferent of everything that happened with Dudy Noble, because I think this generation needs to know who he was and what he accomplished. And so that's the plan right now. A lot of people always ask me, so Steve, what's next? It took me a long time to figure out that I wanted to write When the Bottom Falls. And I'm excited for you guys to have that. I'm excited to get out there and sign it and read your reviews. But guys, I'm excited to dig my hands into this and get to work on bringing to life a Mississippi State legend in Dudy Noble. I think we need to know the man and the career that he had that led us to name our stadium after him. I think it's extremely important. And one of the things that I've learned too is when Dudy Noble retired, they had a ceremony over in Birmingham at the SEC office, and every sitting AD came because they had so much respect for Dudy Noble and what he'd accomplished. And there are so many stories out there that I want to unearth. And it's so interesting. Every time sometimes I'll just stumble across something. And it's like, Dudy Noble did it again. So that's the plan. So you can be thinking about that. Those of you that are planning to buy When the Bottom Falls this year as a Christmas gift for somebody you know and love, go ahead and plan for next year. We'll get the Dudy Noble book out for you too. And again, there's not a lot of interviewing to do. I'll have to do some things on background, and you're going to have to depend on a lot of records. You're going to have to depend on a lot of the stuff in the archives. And we've already started talking about the cover. start talking about how we want to market the book. And so this has all come together really quickly, and it appears that everybody is mutually aligned with this. And again, we've got the full support of the university. They're, again, willing to give me unfettered access to write this book. I think it's an important book for Mississippi State, not just an important book for Steve Robertson. This is a guy that I think that deserves to be profiled. And as somebody told me yesterday, this book probably should have been written 20 years ago. And there's probably some truth to that. But I just feel like if I don't take it on, it won't happen. And that's not out of arrogance. There's just not other people out there writing books about Mississippi State. And I don't know who else would have the interest to go pursue a project like this. And I suspect it'll probably be one of the more difficult things I've ever had to write because I don't know how much records exist and how many people that we can speak to kind of get more stories. And so if you know descendants of Dudy Noble, and I know that they settled in Edwards, Mississippi, and I know that his widow, prior to her death, had basically a shrine to everything Dudy Noble had accomplished in her living room. Not that I want any of that stuff, but I want to be able to see it. I want to have some connections with the family, and I want to honor Dudy Noble's memory in the best way possible. So if you have a connection to that family, and again, they settled in Edwards, Mississippi, if you know anybody, please reach out to me. You can find me on all forms of social media. Find me on Facebook or Twitter. You can email me, whatever you want to do. Hit me up and let me know because I want to do an amazing job on this book to honor one of the most decorated players, coaches, and administrators to ever be involved with Mississippi State athletics. And as you can hear in my voice, I'm extremely excited about this. And this time next year, I hope this book is already on the shelves and we're already celebrating Dudy Noble. I'd like to have it out in time for football season. You know, we didn't have When the Bottom Falls Out, so we didn't do game day signings. And one of the main reasons that I didn't is because people would say, hey, when's the new one coming out? Well, we don't have it. So we'll have it soon. We'll be setting up some book signings. And we'll do a release at some point downtown at Book Martin Cafe and probably do something for the Egg Bowl down at Campus Book Mart. All that's going to happen pretty quickly here. So as dates get set, I'll share with you here. And then we'll get to work on the Dude, man. That's the working title, The Dude, The Life and Times of Dudy Noble. Not the baseball stadium, but the man for which it's named. And when I first mentioned I'm going to write a book about Dudy Noble, people think, oh, that'd be great, man. It's been some great games. No. Not the stadium, the man itself. Of course, we'll talk some about the venue and its place in college baseball history. But more importantly, we're going to talk about the man. We're going to tell the stories behind the man that led to that very prestigious honor. So there you go. Officially announced right here on the Boneyard, the next book, a biography of Dudy Noble. All right, if you hadn't done so, go to whenthebottomfalls.com. You can order When the Bottom Falls. You can order Flim Flam, Alpha Dog, Stark Villains. You can order all that right there. If you're looking for Stark Villains gear, find it at starkvillains.com. It's never too early to be thinking about Christmas, guys. We're talking, it's November 15th. I don't want to make you panic, but it is. And you've got a Boneyard listener or two on your shopping list. Maybe they already have the books. Maybe they deserve a Stark Villains hoodie or t-shirt. Be sure and hook them up at starkvillains.com. And a reminder, if you're not already a member at genespage.com, and you certainly should be, you can get 60% off the annual subscription price right now doing the Coaching Search special. And you can go there right now, log in, and pick it out. Again, 60% off for an annual subscription, and one of the best deals that we'll ever do. Be sure and go check that out today. And we'll have some more updates. Of course, breaking news here. Simeon Price, Mississippi State running back, has entered the NCAA transfer portal. The portal is now open for Mississippi State players. Anytime there is a coaching change, there is a short window. I think it's 30 days. By the time that ends, we'll be in the normal portal window. So you may see some other players leave. I don't know. Simeon Price, I don't know, has been treated fairly. Simeon Price, we mentioned that on the show recently. He had the big run off left side, and then we didn't see him again. He didn't get another carry. And so I think Simeon Price probably feels like he's been underutilized here, and now it's probably a time for him to get a reset. We wish him the best and appreciate his contributions to Mississippi State football. He will not be the last Bulldog to get into the portal. So go ahead and be prepared. And I know I can already hear it now. Are we even going to play football next year? Yes, we're going to be fine. Yes. And there, listen, to be honest with you, there's some guys that need to get in the portal. Let's just be honest about that. We got to flip this roster quickly and get this team winning football games. But right now, our focus is on beating Southern Miss, and then next week we'll train our focus on hopefully winning the Egg Bowl. And then we'll see how the postseason opportunities look after that. But again, Zach Arnett has been fired. You got no reason not to come to the game. There's no protest to be had. We've brought change to the program. Now we're in the process of hiring a new coach. So please come out and support the Bulldogs this weekend and on Thanksgiving. And in the event we make a postseason game, we're going to encourage you to go make that trip with us too, because this is about what's best for Mississippi State, not a coach or an individual, even me and you. This is about us as a collective family all pulling in one direction now. Until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.